Hey guys, EDDBUD here. I'm back with a video today comparing the Adidas Takumi Sen 6 with the ASICS Metaracer. These two shoes share some similar aesthetic appeal. Certainly the design looks very similar, but under the hood there are some considerable differences. Both are aimed at being race flats, slightly lower stack heights with a more responsive ground feel. So how do they shape up? Let's get to it. A few stats first. As you can see by the stack heights, they're actually very similar between these two shoes. I've grabbed some measurements from a review from the Snowdonia runner. They measured the drop on the Takumi Sen as quite different from that stated on the website. I think they're actually right. Doesn't seem to be quite right, the drop. Certainly on my shoe, it's a lot more considerable than the 5mm that's stated on the Adidas website. The Adidas Takumi Sen 6 does have a slight weight advantage over the Metaracer, though you have to consider that the Metaracer is a half size down, at least, from the Takumi Sen 6. That Metaracer weighs in my UK size 11 at 239 grams, which is 8.43 ounces, and the Takumi Sen 6 in the 11.5 UK is 229 grams, which is 8.1 ounces. Let's get to the comparison then. We'll start off with the upper. Certainly very similar upper feel in both of these shoes. They're both orange, they both have the black logos of the respective companies on the sides. That Seller mesh, which is also the same stuff used in the Adizero Pro, does feel and look very similar to the upper material featured on the Metaracer. But I would suggest that the ASICS shoe definitely feels that little bit plusher on foot. It's a little softer, a little more flexible than the Takumi Sen 6. Both uppers are light, breathable and striking in terms of visual appeal. In terms of structural overlays, there's very little on the Takumi Sen 6. Just this one single piece here, which is almost sort of translucent and see-through, just to create a little bit of support on the inside. The Seller mesh to me feels a little bit stiffer. You can observe that by removing any sort of paper from inside the shoe. The Metaracer just slumps in terms of the upper. A little bit more structure in the Seller mesh of the Takumi Sen 6. The heel area on both shoes is firm, but very minimal. I found it a little easier to get a better lockdown in the ASICS Metaracer. The cotton laces that come with the Takumi Sen I found to be a little short, especially if you were going to use a runner's knot. Both of these shoes have that race flat feel to them. Certainly not shoes that you really want to pull out if you want to absorb some nice easy miles. Why did I go up half a size in the Adidas? Well, I just felt that going for an 11 in that would have been far too snug. The 11 is perfect for me in the Metaracer. Both are very breathable, but I'd suggest that the fit, if I'm going to use it for a race or for high tempo running, is better for me in the Metaracer. The Takumi Sen is very narrow. Some of you will not get on with that shoe at all. I don't think anybody's going to have any serious problems in terms of using these shoes in much warmer climates, but for me the Metaracer just had that better lockdown. So a win for the Metaracer in terms of upper. In terms of midsole, the shoes differ quite a lot. In the midsole department of the Metaracer, you've got that lobster claw style plate, which is bottom loaded, I do believe. Flight foam's used in the Metaracer, and a mixture of light strike and boost within the Takumi Sen 6. The boost only appears in the forefoot section of the shoe. I have to say the light strike here does feel completely different to that used in the SL20. Has anybody else got this shoe and the SL20 and felt the same? I know that the Boston series of shoes, or at least the Boston 8, there were two versions of that. One used a more standard foam, if I do believe, along with the boost, and then the other used light strike. If you've used that, please ring in the comments and let me know how you felt about the light strike implementation in that shoe, and if you've tried the SL20. They do feel different to me. The flight foam used in the Metaracer, to me, is a far more forgiving midsole material than the setup we have in the Takumi Sen 6. I wouldn't want to go out for training over 10 miles in that Sen 6. But I've found with more miles the Metaracer is starting to loosen up somewhat. After some miles it's feeling quick, it's feeling nimble on foot, and I'd suggest pretty forgiving too for a shoe that's got a lower stack height and that quite aggressive rocker as well. I think those who have enjoyed the Vaporfly series, or perhaps even the Fuel Cell TC from New Balance, will feel the presence of that carbon plate through their stride. But I will say now that the plate within the Metaracer is far more subtle in its implementation. Over some shorter distances, perhaps the slightly lighter Takumi Sen 6 might be preferable to some. I think only more experienced and able athletes though would opt for the Sen over the distance of 10k. the Metaracer midsole setup for me makes this a slightly more versatile shoe. It could take on different distances at high pace. But both these shoes I would really only recommend for tempo and above pace running. I think the Metaracer has a slight edge in this comparison video for midsole. Outsole now. I think the more aggressive tread and outsole pattern on the Takumi Sen 6 does feel better to me across different types of terrain. It's got real bite and real traction. I think perhaps if you're running in races or going on training routes that have more uneven surfaces, then it could be the ideal shoe for you. That Metaracer outsole is certainly more pavement and road aimed, and I would suggest that the ASICS grip that's used on the outsole here isn't quite as comfortable over dirt and gravel. Can't really put it down for that though, it's not really aimed at that. They've never really said the shoe will be any good in those types of conditions. Where the Metaracer did fine in some wet conditions recently, I think the more versatile outsole here does give it the edge over the Metaracer this time out. Gotta talk value now. At around £90 currently in the sale. Originally I think it was about £140 this shoe retail. There's quite a big price difference there. The Metaracer clocks in at 180, so you're almost looking at half the price. Big disparity there. Is the Metaracer £90 more shoe than the Takumi Sen 6? It's hard to say really. I mean, is any shoe really worth £180? I think that's in the eye of the beholder. Which is going to last longer? I would suggest that both of them are going to be relatively limited in terms of their durability. Once the traction has ground down a little bit on the Takumi Sen 6, I think you'll start to lose some of that bite, which does give an advantage over the Metaracer. Though at £90 or below, I think it's pretty good for a 5 or 10k race shoe. If you really want to minimise the weight, and perhaps you're running on some varied different types of terrain. For example, that Dorchester Dash race where you really need something that's going to dig into the mud a little bit more, but also feel great on road. This could be great. I couldn't use this shoe on that type of course with any sort of mud or very steep inclines. I just don't think it would work. I think if money's no object, then it's probably the better shoe. But we are talking value, so I think the Takumi Sen 6 is probably a better value bet right now. Would you want to wear that shoe for a half marathon though? I don't think you would. So I'll give the crown of value to the Takumi Sen 6 this time, but if you're racing over 10k, then you might want to consider something else. So 2 shoes today guys, they look kind of similar but actually very different feel on foot, different use case, just the setup very slightly different. They look like they could be members of the same family, these 2 shoes, but they are very different. They have some very unique properties. What are your views on the ASICS Metaracer and the Takumi Sen 6? Both very different shoes. I'm sure some of you have got some opinions on the use of both of them. Let me know down in the comments. A musical interlude. I've had it on my Apple Watch now for over 2 months. The latest album from The Strokes. I just keep going back to this one. I think it's something to do with the very metronomic rhythm, the great melodies, quite interesting intertwining guitars. It's a really great album in terms of pace and some very interesting, slightly more emotional lyrics from Julian Casablancas. So do check this one out. Thanks for watching through to the very end of the video today. I much appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications below of when new videos are launched. It really helps the channel out a huge amount if you'd give this video a thumbs up like, and make sure you share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you